Okay. You were talking about conditions.
Actually, we're talking about unconditions, but we get what you're talking about.
So there's conditions that involve the masses. So how can those conditions be solved? How can, like, wars and conflicts between countries and people, how do you see a solution to specific things like that?
Well, what we've noticed, and we've noticed it all, is that when a conflict that you are observing, whether you are personally involved in it or observing it from a distance, when you're in the middle of contemplating it, you are launching preferences. But most humans do not become a vibrational match to their preferences. They remain a vibrational match to the condition that caused the preference to be born. So when we talk about withdrawing your attention from conditions that make you feel uncomfortable, that makes people like you want to come forward and say, but how can we help if we are not aware of the problems? And we agree to that to this extent. Your attention to the problem is creating a global solution. Mass consciousness, with all of its involvement in war and all of its awareness of war, in all of its awareness of poverty and awareness of starvation and awareness of plagues, have launched rockets of desire collectively. But as individuals, you rarely become a vibrational match to what you've launched because you're so enamored with focusing upon what is. The conditions have got you hogtied to the degree that as humans, you spend almost all of your time focused on conditions and evaluating the rightness or the wrongness of them and the degree of goodness and badness of them, which is just such an utter easy first step. You ought to be way, way past that by now.
What if one side wants a solution and the other side doesn't want a solution?
Both sides want a solution. They just want different solutions. But the universe can deliver a solution to both. But so this is the way it works. Let's say that it's just you and another guy. And you think this and he thinks that. And you want a solution and he wants a solution. And source, universe, law of attraction, whatever you want to call this universal energy, is aware of what both want because both have a vortex and the solution for both is in their vortex. But this one, instead of being a match to what's in his vortex, is instead pushing against you. So not a vibrational match to what he wants. The other one, instead of being a match to what's in his vortex, instead pushes against you. So neither one are a vibrational match to the solution that they have created, and both are blaming the other for not receiving the solution, when both could receive a solution that would be completely satisfying to them individually. It's the belief that for me to get what I want, you have to give something that you want up. That's the flawed premise. That's not true, that's not true, that's not true. That's because you have little piles of spoils that you are quibbling over instead of universal, infinite expansion. That's like saying, oh, here's the economy. It's this many billions of dollars or trillions of dollars. It's this many pieces of something. This is the economy. And the rich guys are getting too much of their fair share. And so you pinch yourself off from your share because you're too worried about what that guy's getting. It's like dividing the pie up and saying, he's getting too much of the pie and the rest of us aren't getting enough of the pie. And we say, you could be creating bigger pies. You could be creating more pies. But you're not creating more pies. You're quibbling over the spoils of this one paltry, puny little pie. Because you're not using the energy that creates worlds. You're squabbling over things that are disconnecting you from your true power.
I get that.
Oh, we're so glad.
I get that. But what if
Your question didn't imply that you got that.
I get that. But what if one person's solution or one country's solution is different than the other country's solution? They can't ever come to, it can never be happy. It can never be solved. It can never be, if one person wants the other one dead, if that's going to make them happy, how can they become good again?
Well, the thing is, we get what you're saying, but the person or the country that needs somebody else to be dead in order for them to feel good is not ever going to feel good. So they're just going to keep needing to make a whole bunch more people dead in their quest, and eventually they will come to realize that that's not getting them to where they want to be. In other words, it's an individual awareness. The most significant thing that we want to say to you, and then we're going to go back and we're going to walk through this, and we're going to answer this question that you have presented in such a powerful way, in a way that will give you some resolution and some satisfaction. But before we do, we just want to make this one statement, that is, when you need anybody else to understand it in order for you to feel good, you're in trouble. So what we're saying is, so let's say you're standing as an individual and you're watching the news of the world. And you're seeing all these things that you don't want to be the case. And let's say that you're not even taking sides with who's right and who's wrong. You just see it as a big mess and a lot of people suffering, and you would like it to be different than that. You want different conditions. So you've launched all these rockets of desire and all these rockets of desire, but you, like almost everybody else, you don't even come close to being a vibrational match to what you've asked Source for, even though Source has the ability to yield it all to you. You don't even come close to it because you've got your eye so much on the condition. You're taking score so much. You're aware of it not working out. You hold yourself in vibrational accord with the problems. And so even though you and billions of others for generations longer than we can even speak about have created a vortex of well-being that is available to anyone who allows themselves to be a vibrational match to it. So you finally realize that you can't change those conditions. You can't even get the ear of the United Nations. You can't even get a senator of the United States of America to answer your letter. You can't even get a hearing in the White House. You can't even get anybody who has the ability to do anything. Esther was in a meeting room last week, and she could not even get high enough in the authority of the meeting room to make them understand that she could get 474 people in this room. In other words, they said, no, this room won't hold 474 people. And Esther said, the sign on the wall says that it will. And they said, yeah, but it won't. And Esther said, but the sign on the wall said that it is. Well, and they said, yeah, but your stage is too big and you're taking up too much room. And so the solution was they opened the air wall and they moved everything back 10 feet. And then they had enough room for everything. But Esther knew that they were completely unreasonable. But she could not find a person under those conditions with enough authority to be reasonable. You can't find enough people with enough authority to be reasonable. You have to give it up. If your happiness depends upon somebody else being reasonable, you're in big trouble.
Right.
So, but you as an individual, we've been saying this for a long time, you have the ability to find happiness in the midst of all of that discord. And when you are someone who is willing to find happiness in the midst of all of that discord, then maybe others will follow suit. Maybe they won't, but you've done the only thing that you can do. You've found happiness in the midst of all of that discord, you see.
I get it.
You revere masters who talk about these things, but they seem like just singular individuals who struggle against a mass consciousness that doesn't get it. And we want you to understand that the mass consciousness that doesn't get it is creating something that eventually will, for example, in every moment, old ornery ones are croaking and new allowing ones are being born. So the ratio of allowing is improving and improving and improving. And while there will always be things about your existing what is that you would like to be different, what is becoming is always an improvement. The evolution of all species says that it must be. So if you can just not be impatient, and you can find your happiness now because you can, and you cannot feel guilty, you see, this is the conversation that we had before is really about what we're talking about here. What right do you have to be happy in a world that is full of turmoil? And we say, if you need the world to not be full of turmoil before you can be happy, you're not ever going to be happy because this is a absolute given intention from non-physical. You intended to come in your differences for the expansion of the whole. Source, none of you said, I will be born into physical, but before I get there, clean it all up. Get it all worked out. Get it all worked out. And then I will go and I will observe a peaceful world. That's not what you said. You said, I will move into this world of variety and I will come to my own personal preferences and I will align with my preferences and I will live happily ever after. And the preferences perceived, received by others will not be the basis by which I allow my alignment. Are you hearing us?
Okay.
So
I'm happy, no matter what's going on, no matter what happens in the world. As an individuals, we can be happy. I think most of us in here understand that.
we think most of you do not understand it. We think that it is a notion that you are not yet living. It is a notion that you want to live, but it is not a notion that you are living. Because you're still upset that your brother or sister feels left out, and you're still upset about this and that. In other words, most people are far from that. But it's so easy to accomplish it once you care about how you feel.
I care about how I feel. I feel great. I really do. I just want to, I want to know if there's a way to solve the condition, to somehow put into momentum a system or a way of words or feelings to get the masses to agree on something.
No.
Is there a way to do that?
No.
So I'm just gonna, yeah.
Because they didn't come to agree, they came to expand. An agreement smacks of sameness. Difference is what expansion is born from.
Okay, well that brings us back to the...
Esther used to say to Jerry, I really want to know what you think. And Jerry would say, I don't think you want to know what I think. I think you want me to agree with what you think. And Esther would say, well, let's just talk about it a little longer so that I really understand what you think. And he would get that grin on his face and he would say, we can talk about it. I'm happy to talk about it with you. But I just want you to acknowledge that you're trying to convince me rather than learn what I think. And what we are saying to both of them is think your different thoughts and the whole of you is more than the same of you. In other words, if Jerry and Esther had been identical, they would have accomplished far less than their differences. You see? And when you see that exponentially around the world, your differences are your greatest strength. But your clamoring against the differences of others takes your legs out from under you. So the very thing that gives you your strength and expansion, you use against yourself and deprive yourself of the expansion that the variety produced. Ooh, did you hear that? Your differences cause an expansion, but your worry about the differences keep you from allowing yourself the expansion that your differences provided. Oh, hear that. Hear that.
I gotta wait for the CD.
Say,
I gotta wait for the CD to hear that one again.
So bring it down to something practical for yourself, and we'll show you exactly what we mean.
Like a personal condition?
Whatever you want to talk about. World condition, personal condition, anything where there's a disagreement that you think needs to be resolved.
Okay. The Israeli-Palestinian condition going on right now. You hear about on the news every 5 minutes, Facebook.
So what's your question to us? How to solve it for yourself?
No, for myself. For myself, I'm okay. I'm happy.
Well, then mind your own business.
Okay.
Because that's not the way you're presenting yourself. You're saying, I'm happy unless I focus on what's going on over there over which I have no control.
No.
So if you have no control and your attention to it, are you saying that you can watch that and still be happy?
Yeah.
Then why are we talking about it? If you can watch that and still be happy, then you are seeing it through the eyes of Source and you are living unconditional love and there's no conversation, but that's not what's going on. You want them to solve their problem.
I like to see it happen, but
Why? But why do you need them to solve that problem? In order for you to be a catalyst in helping them, you'd have to understand it. They don't even understand it. Basically what they understand is you're someplace we don't want you to be and you need to leave. And they're saying, but we don't want to leave. Can't we all be here together? No, we don't want to be here together. We need you to go someplace else. We're not willing to share this space. This goodness is only goodness for us. You are not allowed to have this goodness. This is a piece of goodness that has been defined by God. Both sides are saying that. And we will not share our goodness with you. You must leave. Oh, you're not ever going to sort that out. In other words, as long as someone's decided that the goodness that is being offered by God is only offered to you and not you, that you're not ever going to sort that out. So you have to let them figure it out on their own. You have to let them figure it out. You have to let them figure it out until their alignment with Source trumps their need to push someone else away. That's what we meant earlier when we said you can't get sick enough to help sick people get well. And you cannot become stingy enough with the resources of well-being to allow the resources of well-being. In other words, it just will not be. You cannot get there from there, you see. So what happens is over time, and it takes time. It takes more time than it needs to. That's why we have these conversations with those like you who are willing to have these conversations, who are willing to shift just a little bit. When you are willing to say, my happiness doesn't depend upon my sisters being happy, then you've got a shot of helping the Israeli-Palestinian situation. But most people aren't even there yet, you see.
I am.
It's a good place to be, isn't it?
It's great. Yeah, I can be happy. I am happy. Does Abraham...
you help us make the point so clearly that we want to make, which is your happiness exists only in your understanding of being unconditional. Because the condition that you feel needs to be solved is not yours to solve. So you have to find happiness around the condition. That's what unconditional love is. It's happiness in spite of the condition, or happiness even with the condition. It's happiness along with the condition. It's happiness trumping the condition. It's alignment trumping the condition. It's caring about being happy enough. Caring enough.
Do you see the masses, do you see that coming to an end, a conclusion, ever?
You've asked the ultimate conditioned question.
Because Abraham, do you see that?
Do we see differences of opinion being resolved? Are you asking about this specific situation or
Yeah, just to be
theoretically?
specific, yes.
Well, we're going to answer the question in a way that's going to annoy you.
That's
and
okay. That's okay.
And then we're going to answer it specifically.
Okay.
Did you hear us say that you come with variety for the privilege and joy of expansion, and that sameness does not produce expansion?
Okay.
So if you're asking, will humans ever be in complete agreement about everything, our answer to you is, if that were ever to happen, you would be done as creators, because no more expansion could occur. So then if you accept that expansion comes out of that kind of variety, but that it is possible in that variety to find joy, is it possible for those who are inhabiting this earth to finally accept that it's big enough for everyone? Yes, but first those inhabitants have to understand that the resources are coming from a vibration, not from a condition. You're not trucking in new resources from other places. They're not spaceships coming in and leaving seeds. In other words, this is the evolution of what's going on here. And so when you accept that the resources that you're reaching for are the resources of source energy, and that you can all individually tap into it and you all can live happily ever after, yes, of course, that is the potential. It's what everyone wants for everything. But the way to get there is not by pushing against the parts of it that you do not like. And that's why, do we see a world where you can live in joyous interaction with one another? All of the new little ones coming in feel exactly that way. They come pliable and eager and feeling possibilities.
Right.
And then often are trained into factions, and their emotions let them know that they're off their trail. So what these conversations are about helping you at whatever stage of life you're at to step back onto your path, to step back onto the path that you intended, to get hold of the trajectory of who you really are, to live happily ever after. The difference in our answer and your question is, yes, we can see a time when the inhabitants of this planet can be happy, but they will be unconditionally happy. We do not see a time when the inhabitants of this planet will agree about how the conditions should be. And that's the difference. If you need the conditions to be agreed upon, you're never going to get there because you can't sort that out. If you're able to feel good given the conditions that exist, then you're going to be all right, you see. So in a less troubling conversation, so she wants to live at the ocean, and he wants to live in the mountains. And she wants to live at the ocean, and he wants to live in the mountains. And she wants to live at the ocean, and he wants to live in the mountains. And it's been going on for a while. And he just cannot believe how stubborn she is. And she just cannot believe how unreasonable he is. And he talks to his friends, and she talks to her friends. And they're at a sort of impasse. And so they're living in a place, neither one of them is happy. They're not at the ocean, and they're not in the mountains. And neither one of them is happy. So what we are suggesting is that if she will talk about what it is about living near the ocean that she likes, if she can get the condition out of it and just talk about the essence of what she wants, and if he can talk about why he wants to live in the mountains, and instead of needing to live in the mountains, just talk about the essence of what he wants. Each of them will become a vibrational match to the essence of what they want. And the universe will orchestrate a path that will bring each of them equal and enormous satisfaction. Because there is a solution to every situation. There is a solution to every situation. But you can't get to the solution by clamoring against the problem. You get to the solution by accepting that you've already created the solution, and now you're trying to feel your way to the resolution. And so you're right that harmony with each other is the first step. But you cannot orchestrate harmony with another. You can only orchestrate harmony with yourself. So if you find harmony with self, harmony with self, harmony with self, harmony with self, so that you're offering a vibration that's harmonic with who you are and what you want, those who are a vibrational match to you will clamor around you, and you will find yourself surrounded by conditions that are in vibrational alignment with what you want, you see. You are the center of your universe. You are the perceiver of your reality. You are the creator of your reality. You are the accomplisher of your vibration. You are your own point of attraction. You are the assembler of your mood. You are the honer of your mood. You are responsible for your vibrational output. You are responsible for your point of attraction. Everything that comes back to you is a vivid and exact mirror of your output. So if what's coming back to you, if the reality that you are observing, if the reality that you are perceiving isn't pleasing to you, it's not because they need to be different, it's because you need to be different. You have to adjust your vibrational output in order to perceive things the way you want them to be. Oh, it is so satisfying to have this conversation with you, because so much of the world is running around needing other people to do things so that they can feel better and giving away all of their power to others instead of accepting that the power is yours and then finding the thrill of utilizing the power that is yours. If you'll take the time to find a little bit of this unconditional love, you are going to be knocked over by the cooperation of the universe. It's going to feel to you like somebody went out ahead of you and told every single person to be nice to you. Every single person to do everything you can to make this life better. In other words, that's the way it feels when you get in sync with all of that.
How do you feel unconditional love to someone who wants to kill you?
He said, how do you feel unconditional love towards someone who wants to kill you? By taking your attention away from the idea that they want to kill you. By taking your attention away from the idea that they want to kill you.
We're not talking about single people. We're talking about a mass, two different countries. We're not talking about one person, two people. That's easy. That's no sweat. We can do that. We're talking about millions of people. I understand.
How long have you been alive in this body?
53 years.
And how many people do you think would like to see you and those like you dead?
Me personally? I hope no one at the moment. Well, maybe there is.
Well, how many missiles are pointed at you? How many jihads are written in your? How many? In other words, there are all kinds of people who would like to see you dead.
Right. Okay.
But they don't have power like that. In other words, they don't have any control in your experience.
Right.
So it's an understanding of that. We're not saying that people aren't afraid, and we're not saying that people aren't putting up shields of defense, and we're not saying that people don't have what they believe is reason to be defensive. What we are saying is that anytime you feel defensive, you are creating a vibration that puts you in jeopardy. It's your very acceptance of your vulnerability that is the reason for things not going well for you, 100% of the time. Well-being is the energy that abounds. It's the only stream that is flowing. And people live to the degree that they pinch it off or allow it. But
so we should just not pay attention to it, think good thoughts, and be happy, and turn it off when it comes on the news, and not delete it from your.
If we were standing in your physical shoes, our desire to feel good would trump everything.
Right.
So that if we find ourselves uneasy when we are participating in any thought, word, or action, we would make a different decision about it until we had trained ourselves into a frequency that feels good to us. And then the result of that will be a response from the universe to you. You see, this conversation has been satisfying on so many levels because we can feel the power of your desire and the clarity of your desire. And we make a little headway with you, and then you focus right back on the very condition that caused the question to begin with. And so then all the ground that we've accomplished together you lose as you focus upon a condition that you can't control, which helps us make the point even more that as long as you're going to keep focusing upon the condition for which you have no solution, and you don't have a solution because you've been watching it going on for so long. So watching it it's like self-torture. I'm going to focus upon this thing that I would feel better if it changed, but it's not changing. In fact, it's getting worse. So you're just holding yourself in suspended animation in this place of discord. And we're just wanting to appeal to your reason and to your heart and to your source and say, why would you do that to you? If doing it doesn't solve anything and doing it just messes up the way you feel in this moment, why are you doing that? And we know the answer to that. The answer is because you've been trained to sacrifice yourself in those ways. You've been trained to look at things you can't control and feel bad about them, and you believe that that is your contribution to humanity. I won't put my head in the sand. I will not, that we really are onto something really significant. You're not going to admit that right now. We're talking about mass consciousness as we speak about it. You believe that your pain is your gift. That's the way you compensate for the well-being that comes to you. And it's time for you to embrace the well-being that comes to you. It's time for you to stop sacrificing yourself for things that don't make any difference anyway. You cannot sacrifice yourself into making an improvement in anybody else's experience. The only way you can ever be of any value to anyone else is to align with source energy and radiate it everywhere. And you can't do that while you watch those news broadcasts. All you do is pinch yourself off from the well-being and your power. And the way you feel when you do it lets you know that. You see, you cannot get there from there. And so we would say to all of them, we do say to all of them, we love you and we are doing everything in our power to anticipate your joyous outcome. But you've got to meet that thought. And the only way that you can meet that thought is by feeling your way into vibrational alignment with that thought. Stop having debate eon after eon that does not pan out. Let these laws of the universe show to you the way they work. Law of attraction doesn't monkey around. Law of attraction is not arbitrary like the bombs of nations. Law of attraction is consistent every single time. And the source within you is not tricking you, and neither is law of attraction. And so when you find a vibrational improvement, you will live a vibrational improvement. In other words, that's the way you show that to yourself. And spend no time trying to convince someone who is on a hatred path.
Yeah.
Don't try to talk to them about it. They're not going to hear you. They will just see you as weak as you are looking for joy, you see. This is a really good time for a segment of this lesson.